Yeah.
Hey guys, so we are here with Danny from Deep South Homestead. You guys have been following him most likely for a long time. We have a lot of the same subscribers because our knowledge base is very similar. However, the difference in our knowledge base is Danny is Deep South and I am the cold, frigid North. And so today we're going to compare the way that we prepare for winter. Now, there's also a way to prepare for summer and a way to prepare for spring, but we're going to focus on winter this time. So make sure to check out the rest of the series where we talk about other seasons and other topics. But we're going to really dive into it because there's a lot of people just going into homesteading that maybe have found their perfect piece of land somewhere that is almost like another planet from where they started.
That's true, Julie. I mean, what I run into on my channel a lot is the simple fact that I get a lot of these questions. People go, I just moved from point A to point B, and now I'm watching you. You're putting out all this information. Will it work for me? And the answer is, it might and it might not. It depends on what zone you're in. It depends on your longitude, your latitude, because what we do here at Deep South, and you'll notice on my videos, I always make this comment, it may not work for you. Simply because where you live up in Idaho and where I live down here in Mississippi, two totally different climates.
And you know, soil.
Soil is extremely different.
Yeah, and resources.
Yes.
That when you go from north to south, when you have that broad of a difference in climate, you kind of just have to start over. And you kind of have to just scrub your brain clean and really rely on the people around you to explain how you do it. So, for instance, in the north, when we get into fall, I will butcher all of my animals that require feed, except for just enough laying ducks to start laying again in the summer or in the spring so that we have eggs. I cut down my milk goats to the point to where I have just what it takes to feed my family, and that's it. I just have enough stock left over to start over again in spring, and then I go and I buy at least a year's supply of hay and grain to get all of my livestock through the winter. And with my birds, because grain prices can go up and down so much, I'll actually buy maybe 2 years worth because it stores forever. It stores forever.
I can't even comprehend that.
Yeah, and so Danny and I were talking about this last night. It's why we wanted to talk about this, is that can you store hay and can you store grain?
Hay I can store here, but the outer, let's take a roll of hay for instance, because everything here is done in rolls now. Very few people ever square bale anymore. Right. A roll of hay that's not wrapped in the plastic, the outer 6 inches of it might last a year. The rest of it's pretty good, but the outer 6 inches is going to rot. And that's because of the humidity here and the rain and stuff because we get so much of it. But now feed, on the other hand, no, feed is a bi-weekly thing for us. Which Wanda and I experimented with this here. We actually went to the feed store and bought a month's worth of feed at one time. Before that month was up, over half the feed had already molded and had ruined. Because of the humidity and the temperature fluctuation here. Now, you were mentioning up there you go ahead and butcher everything. Mm-hmm. Down here in the fall, what I do is I go ahead and prepare my fields and I plant my grasses and stuff, because a winter rye will actually grow here all winter. We don't lose any green grass. So I can actually take my animals from one pasture to the next and rotate grazing. Right through the winter time. So there's no need for me to stock a lot of hay. The only reason I would stock a tremendous amount of hay for the amount of animals that I have is for rainy days, because rainy days, sheep are just like goats or anything else. They don't like to be in the rain, so I keep hay in the barn where they can actually feed in the barn. Now, pigs, we butcher a pig in the wintertime when the temperature actually gets cool enough to do it. We don't actually know when that's going to be. But we may wake up one morning here and go, wow, it's 20-something degrees. Today's the day. Right. Where we may go all the way till January and not even have a cold day. Yeah. Because a lot of people say, well, do you hang your animals for so many days before you actually cut them up? The answer is no.
Right.
We can't do that.
Well, and we're the same way, is that lately we've had a lot of really warm days in the fall. And so we'll actually wait until about Thanksgiving time to butcher things, because with our ducks in particular, we do like to hang them for a little while. We won't do it with pork, but for me, the reason that I like to butcher them is because I don't have mouths to feed. I don't want to, because we have snow, we have deep snow, we have extreme temperatures, the less chores I have to do, the more I still love farming. And so, and the other thing is that our chickens, because of the cold and the lack of light, they don't lay real well in the winter. If they do lay, the eggs freeze instantly because of the cold. So the chickens can survive through the winter, but the eggs don't survive in the winter. So there's not really any point in me feeding more mouths than I have to. I think the one feed that I can't store is rabbit feed, because even for us, they crumble too easily. The moisture content, even just in normal air in Idaho, the rabbit pellets will crumble.
Okay.
Different climate.
Where we live at here, sometimes we're in 8, and sometimes we're in zone 9. It depends on the El Nino in the Pacific, what it's doing to the weather across the country.
Well, yeah, and you do have a range. You know, some years you have drought, some years you have way too much rain, and that can happen. And in my opinion, the surest way to get around that is that when you move into an area, you go find yourself an old timer. Now an old timer could be younger than you, but what it really means, you know, it could be somebody that's 20 years younger than you, but when you drive through town and you see a beautiful garden, stop and say, will you teach me? I will be humble. I will be teachable. Please teach me. And because the proof is in the pudding.
Yes.
Do they have a successful garden? Not can they talk for hours and hours and hours, but go look at their garden. For me, that would have been my mom. And we have another lady that I found on Craigslist that I went out, and she was successful at growing so many things that nobody else in the area could grow. I shouldn't go to a book to get that information. I should go to this woman and pick her brain about every little secret that she has, because she lives in almost exactly the same conditions that I do. And so that's why we want to talk today, is to say it matters that you get the personal input of somebody that's currently doing it.
Even, I'll give you for instance, even me, having lived in this area my whole life, I moved to this particular spot. I had failed at growing English peas my whole life. The elderly gentleman across the fence grew English peas perfect. They were beautiful. And he said nothing to me the first year. He just watched. The second year I watched him as he harvested everything, and he had like bucketfuls of English peas. Me, I might end up with a gallon, and that's it. And you know, you have to stick some pride to the side. And I stepped across the fence, and I asked him, I said, sir, just be honest, what am I doing wrong? Well, he shared his wisdom and his knowledge with me, and when he did, now I successfully grow English peas all the time. One thing, it was about the way I was growing them. The other was variety. Once I got variety and technique down, I had a success. Yeah,
and it can be that simple. It can be just turn of a dime, now you're an expert.
Right.
So I think for it's all well and good to watch YouTube channels, and I talked to this about a kid that I went and filmed in Oklahoma, was the importance of sharing information for your locale. If you're somebody who really loves to garden, you're really good at it, a YouTube channel is great because you can share specific information for your location. But I still think the best expert is one who's local, who can hold your hand through the process and explain it to you. And that goes for buying livestock. It goes for building your barn. Here, rot and having problems with wood rotting is a real problem. It's not such a problem for us. And so Danny was telling me I couldn't build things with wood pallets here.
No, wood pallets do not work here. If you take a wood pallet here and stick it on the ground, in 2 weeks it's eat up with termites.
Yeah.
It is a little frustrating because I watch a lot of YouTube channels, and I see them doing all these great things with what they call a real cheap and economical way to do things. And it frustrates me a little bit because I can't do them here.
Right.
Because I have to go spend a lot of money to do what other people up north do very economically and very cheap. People talk about back to Eden. Back to Eden will not work here. And I know I get a lot of flack about that on my channel. But the bottom line is, if I go and put wood chips in here, what I do is, and we've tried it, I create a termite bed
Right.
and a fire ant bed.
Right.
And if I put young plants in that, the fire ants just eat them up and they die. So it's really not feasible for us, especially in the fall. Everybody's talking about just mulch, mulch, mulch. Yeah, it just doesn't work.
I think that's the thing that I've learned the most with the YouTube and with my gardening experience is that you can go to any guru and they'll tell you this is the right way to do it. There's no other way to do it. You should always do it this way. And yet if you want results, if your goal is to feed your family,
Yes.
you do the way that works, not the way that is that you feel personally attached to.
Yeah, and that I like the way you use that word, becoming personally attached to, because that seems to be what happens with more people that I've noticed. They find someone, they go, I just like them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether their information is any good or not, they say, I just like those people.
Yeah.
And it's inaccurate information because I'll look at the comments and people will say, I live in this particular part of the country. Well, what I'm doing, where you're at, and they go, oh yeah.
Right.
When it won't work.
Right.
You know, and stuff like that, especially for a beginning homesteader, that can be devastating. It's demoralizing, and I'll always tell people, and I'll say this here even now, if you're a beginning homesteader, do not set long-term goals up front. Up front, it's okay to have a couple of long-term goals. Mainly set some short-term goals, because the quicker you reach your goals, the quicker you'll see satisfaction, and you won't get frustrated quick.
And find local friends and local experts. Like for me, Craigslist is a really, really big deal because we met most of our farming and homesteading friends on Craigslist. They were people that had livestock in the area that I didn't introduce me to other people in the area who could introduce me to other people in the area, and also recognize it takes time.
Yes.
To be successful, my personal opinion is it takes 5 years to homestead successfully, because you're learning your soil, you're learning your livestock, you're getting resources in the area that are your neighbors.
Right.
It takes 5 years. It's not a quick thing. And the more experts you can balance off of each other and learn from before you put a lot of money into things.
Right.
And watch the way that your water flows in your property. Get through a winter before you decide that you're going to do things a certain way, because you have to learn from personal experience.
Well, one thing here, I don't know a lot about where you're at, but I know here in the Deep South, one thing is seed varieties.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have learned from experience, and you're saying 5 years for you to be able to get a place going, and I agree with that completely. For the simple fact is it takes 3 years here just to acclimate a seed to your environment. Because we may order from whatever seed company, and when that seed comes in, if you keep using that seed year after year and saving that seed will become acclimated to your soil, it will become acclimated to your climate, and it will actually end up doing extremely well for you. But if you do not save seed, and you order your seed year after year after year, you never really have a plant that is acclimated to your environment.
Yeah.
I have some seeds here I've been doing for 20-something years, and they're almost a surefire guarantee for me. I have greens here that's almost a surefire guarantee for me. I got corn that's a guarantee for me. All these things do extremely well because they have acclimated themselves to my temperature, to my environment. And what taught me this lesson was I was buying some running pole beans, the Christmas limas. I never could get a harvest out of them that was worth anything. The humidity, because they were a pole bean and they were up so thick, the air could not flow through them, and I was getting a lot of humidity build up in them, a lot of bacteria build up in them, mold would start growing on them, and I was just getting frustrated. I said, these things are just for people in the north, evidently. But one year I got enough seeds that I saved them. The second year I got a pretty nice harvest. The third year, Wanda and I grew some up here just as an experiment. We got a fantastic harvest off of them because they finally acclimated after the third year to our climate here, because it's so hot and so humid.
Well, and livestock will do the same thing.
Yes.
Because if you bring a new stock in, then wherever they're from, especially if they're from a long ways away, you might lose a lot the first year.
Yeah.
But because you're not just acclimating them to the climate, you're acclimating them to the food, you're acclimating them to the water, to the dangers that are in their environment that stress them, to the way that you handle them, the medication you give them. And so that's why I think it's good to find reputable breeders rather than just getting some scrub animal from somewhere, and try to get them as local as you possibly can, just because the less stress you have, the less time it takes you to get it. It makes a difference.
Well, it does, and I noticed you made a comment there about parasite issues. In the South here, because of the heat, we have a tremendous parasite problem, and I'm not so sure up north where you live it may not be as prevalent as it is here.
It can become a mild concern, but very rarely do you have an animal that actually dies or has any kind of serious thing that isn't just taken care of really, really quickly.
Where on the other hand, down south here, because of the heat, you can lose an animal overnight.
That's incredible. So we're going to do another series that's talking about summer. Summer for us is very different from summer for Danny.
Yes.
And we're also going to do one for spring and fall. So make sure to go check these out. And we're glad that you enjoyed this. If you have any more questions about winter in our different environments, make sure to let us know. And go check out Deep South Homestead. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye, y'all.